Hello and welcome to the Sustainable Materials Management webinar series, a joint effort between the National Recycling Coalition and the Pennsylvania Recycling Market Center. My name is Wayne Bowen. I'm the Program Manager for the Recycling Market Center and will serve as your moderator today. Before we get started, we'd like to extend a special thanks to Bob Hollis of the Mobius Network for providing the webinar management software for this series. The focus of today's webinar is on ocean-bound plastics recycling. Our presenter today is Tamsin Ettefagh, who I'll introduce in a moment. Following her presentation, we will conduct a question and answer session. If you have a question or comment, please use the GoToWebinar dialog box located on the control panel on your screen. You may also use the dialog box to request assistance if you're experiencing technical difficulties during the webinar. Please note that an edited version of this webinar will be made available for viewing via YouTube links on the National Recycling Coalition and Pennsylvania Recycling Market Center websites. The presentation slides can also be obtained using the handout upload feature on your webinar control panel. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter. Tamsin Ettefagh is Vice President of Sales for Reidsville, North Carolina-based recycler Envision Plastics. Prior to joining Envision, she served as Division Sales Manager for KW Plastic Recycling and is currently the largest plastic recycler in the United States. Tamsin has more than 30 years experience in the recycling industry, from collection to the reprocessing of plastics. She attended SMU and Texas A&M University and has a Bachelor of Science degree in Communications. Tamsin serves on the executive board of the Association of Post-Consumer Plastic Recyclers, also known as APRs, and is also on APR's technical committee, representing HDPE resin interests, as well as Walmart Stores Sustainability Committee. Envision, with a sales of about $110 million a year, makes bottle and extrusion grade recycled HDPE as one of the country's largest recyclers of HDPE bottles. It supplies color-specific recycled resin through its patented process for color sorting material. Envision also holds a non-objection letter for its EcoPrime brand, recycled high density, from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Envision Plastic was formed in 2001 after obtaining proprietary rights and patented technologies from Union Carbide, and then acquired production facilities in Reidsville and in Chino, California. In addition to the APR, Envision Plastics is a member of the Carolina Recycling Association and the National Recycling Coalition. Okay, Tamsin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, everyone, for joining and trying to learn about ocean-bound plastics. I hope I can achieve that for you. So first, before talking about ocean-bound, though, I think you did a good job telling everybody about who Envision Plastics is. We did get started in 2001. I noticed this is an old slide. We've done over 1 billion pounds of plastics since 2001, so this slide's probably a few years old. We were acquired by Consolidated Container Corp in 2014, and we were both just purchased by Lowe's Corp. Some of you guys might have stayed at a Lowe's hotel chain, or you visited a Lowe's movie theater. So we're now hoping that they will be known as a Lowe's packaging organization as well. And Wayne mentioned that we're known for our EcoPrime, which is our FDA grade resin, and our Prismacolor sorted. And I guess the side effect of EcoPrime is we can make deodorized resin. I think those three differentiated products has helped lead us to this ocean-bound plastic that I'm here to talk about. But really what led us to the ocean-bound plastic is 10 years ago, we did the method plastic, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But truly what is Envision's aspirations today is we really believe in a future where everyday products can be positively impacting our planet, and that's our true aspirations in the future. We really hope we can create safe and clean and economic input to the recycled and recyclable packaging so that manufacturers and brands and retailers can contribute to a cleaner future. And really what I mean about that is we really need all brands to be part of that. Today, you hear about the stories about circular economy, and a lot of brands have talked about what their ambitions are. Unilever, Coke, Tinkle, Danone, companies like that have come out with ambitions for 2020 and 2025 about what they want for recycled content. But those are just a few brands. We really need all the players that make packaging to be part of the solution for it to be economical. If only a handful of them do it, it's not going to be economical for those few that are doing it. So we really hope that all the consumer product companies are part of that solution. We at Envision hope to innovate and outperform our competitors and invent different forms and functions of recycling so that we can be sustainable and part of the closed loop system. We hope to empower consumers, and we do that by being part of the APR. The APR is the Association of Post-Consumer Plastic Recyclers, and they were instrumental in writing design guidelines for recyclability. And those design guidelines have been part of the Sustainable Packaging Coalition's How to Recycle logo. And if you guys aren't aware of that today, those How to Recycle logos are on quite a bit of those brands that I just described, logos on their labels today. Both Walmart has decided to make that part of their private labels. Target is also encouraging all of their vendors, as well as Walmart, outside of their private labels, to have a How to Recycle logo that SPC has sponsored. So they use the APR's design guidelines as a way to determine whether a package is recyclable. And even if it isn't, they use that logo for you, the consumer, to decide whether you want to purchase that package or not, or to determine whether you can recycle that package or not. So that's part of our empowerment as an industry, to be part of the APR and then to be part of that design guidelines and then move further into the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, which we're also a member of today. We truly feel like the future is possible to be free of waste. So hopefully with recycling and other alternative technologies, we can get there. So we go back to 10 years ago where we worked with Method and we created a plastic that was from the ocean. It was great. We got a lot of accolades over it. I probably had more phone calls than I ever had in my whole career at Envision. However, it wasn't sustainable. And so while the huge awareness we had, it was small volume. The material was degraded, had a lot of sand and salt in it. It was only gray or black in color because you couldn't anticipate what kind of plastic you were going to get out of the ocean and what color it was. It had a lot of odor with it. In fact, I used to tell people, friends of mine, it's like if you dug into the sand and you got to the wet part and you sniffed it, that smell, that's what you smelled. It was very inconsistent as far as the type of polyolefin you could expect, how much polypropylene versus how much polyethylene you got from one batch to another, and what melt flow. And worst of all, you were reliant on volunteers to do the collection programs, and since they changed all the time, again, inconsistency of material. So, what is the problem with all this? There was an article written in Science magazine in 2010. It estimated that there were 600 billion pounds of plastic that was generated in these coastal countries. Out of that 600 billion pounds of plastic waste, approximately 80% of that plastic polluting our oceans was coming from land-based sources. Unfortunately, 80% of that plastic, 90% of it coming from Southeast Asia. I have to honestly say Envision isn't going to Southeast Asia to get any of this plastic. It wouldn't be prudent to us. It would be greenwashing. We wouldn't be really reducing any carbon footprint for anybody by recycling that material. So, to be honest with you, talking about the negative aspects of doing ocean plastic, about it being inconsistent, We got a call about 3 years ago in 2016 from the author of the design guidelines. And when I talk about the author, there were multitude of people who were working on the design guidelines at APR. But we did consign one particular person to head that up, and that was a gentleman by the name of Kurt Cozart. And he called me up after being hired as a consultant by the Pan American Development Fund in Haiti. That Pan American Development Fund was a fund that was created after the big earthquake that happened in Haiti several years ago. So they noticed there was a huge waste problem in Haiti, and they decided to take some of that funding that they got from all the corporations that donated money after the earthquake. And they hired him as a consultant in plastics recycling to go down there and help them set up a plastics recycling program down there. He knew that Envision had done the ocean plastics with method and thought that would be right up our alley. He called me up. I was traveling in Wisconsin. I put him on speakerphone because it wouldn't be proper for me to be driving and talking on the phone. So I had hooked up my phone through the Bluetooth, I guess, on the rental car. And immediately I thought, oh my God, another one of these ocean plastic programs. Really, we haven't done that much. It's a problem quality-wise, and it's really just a dog and pony show when you get right down to it. You know, it makes you think you're doing a great thing, but really it's not the solution. And I told Kurt that on the phone. I get off the phone and my colleague sitting next to me said, you know, Tamsin, it really disappoints me that you don't want to do this. I actually came to work for Envision because guys were doing the ocean plastic. And if you think about it, if you read Jana Jambeck's article in 2010, this is the problem. The problem is not the plastic that's in the ocean, it's all the plastic entering the ocean. So you read that article, you listen to Kurt Cozart call me and say, oh my God, Tamsin, there's all this waste down in Haiti. It would be wonderful if you guys would just come down there and look at it. And then you've got one of your favorite employees telling you, we've got to do something about it. This slide is the actual article that was written in Science Magazine that's just really fine print. So I thought I'd put it in plain letters in the slide before that. So this is Jana Jambeck's actual contribution where it writes out the matrix that talks about the 600 million pounds and that it's land-based sources and that it's really coming from these at-risk communities that are within 50 kilometers of the ocean, and that if we could just manage those areas, we wouldn't have these problems of it entering the ocean. And so I said, okay, we'll send somebody to Haiti to meet with Kurt and we'll look at it. But I don't have my hopes up. I'll just put it that way. So this was August 2016. We send our head of purchasing down to Haiti. She goes down there, and of course it pulls out her heartstrings, and she says, yeah, I guess we should do something about it. So by October of 2016, we have our first load of plastic shipping from Haiti to Envision. And of course, it wasn't easy because a hurricane hit and it got diverted to Jamaica. It sat there for about a month and a half. And I think it was December before we got the first load. But this is our approach at the time. We really need to take it out before it goes in. It's, I guess, in a concept, it's like if you were about to wash your or mop your floor in the kitchen, and you turn on your sink and you're getting the water ready and you put the soap in it and you get a phone call and you forgot about it and it starts overflowing. You're not going to run and start mopping the floor and continuously trying to clean up the floor that's overflowing. You're going to turn off the tap. So this is our approach. We're going to take it out before it goes in. And the picture behind this, and I hope you guys can see it, is the actual ocean plastic we used to get on the shipping containers when we used to get materials from Method and from Parlay. And it used to be kind of dangerous because it wasn't packaged very well. You'd open up the shipping container and it used to just flood us with fishing nets, broken pieces of plastics, buoys, and things like that. and it wasn't very safe for our workers to work with it. And I can't imagine all the volunteers that used to dump it in there, and then they tried to shut those 2 shipping container doors. It couldn't have been very safe for them either. So we define ocean plastic as going into communities that are at risk. These are communities that don't have municipal collection systems like you and I have here in America. The government doesn't provide waste hauling for them. They only have it if they have private pickups that they can afford to pay for it. And then what does a qualified partner look like for us? We have to go in there, show them what it is Envision recycles, and then they have to comply with what is a qualified partner. They have to pay fair wages, they have to have safe work conditions, they have to not employ children, and they have to have an environment that's safe. And so that's our kind of definition of ocean plastic. That's what makes the qualified partner. And then we go one step further. We hire a third-party auditor to follow behind Envision to do the third-party audit of that, so that way we're not, at liberty to cheat the system. We use that third-party auditor to make sure that that supplier to us is following that scorecard of ours. So we can take the material in different formats. We've also worked with suppliers to Envision to help market the other materials that they can collect. So of course, PET, polypropylene, rigid containers. We happen to know that in Haiti, the colored PET is going to Hewlett-Packard for making the ink cartridges. So that's actually a unique thing here in the States. There's not many markets for colored PET, so we like to think that we've helped develop markets that are beyond what we have here in the States, for in Haiti, for example. This is a picture of the owner of Ettefagh, who supplies us the material that we get out of Haiti, and one of the workers. And this is an example of the workers sorting the different plastics into the different bags of the materials. And today there's over 9,000 of these super sacks in Haiti. So we like to think of over 9,000 people are now employed in Haiti collecting the plastics. So kind of to summarize the removed obstacles of ocean plastics versus ocean bound. And ocean plastics, there were small volumes being collected. The material was degraded with sand and salt. Only could be in gray or black for potential customers. It certainly had odors, and it was inconsistent material, and you were reliant on volunteers, so it was very skeptical that you could grow it or make it sustainable. We made a 10 million pound commitment last year in June in 2017 after doing it for almost a year. And since that 10 million pound commitment, it was June of this year, 2018, we were at 5.3 million pounds, or excuse me, 5.2 million pounds. That we were able to create the same quality of HDP PCR as we have domestic curbside collection. That we could have them sort out and make natural, or we can make color sorted resins just like we do domestically. That we can take that resin, deodorize it, and since our most recent trip to Haiti this last couple of weeks, we can even have them sort out the food grade containers. And we've just recently gotten an opinion from our law firm that says by having them sort out those food grade containers, we could take that through our process and actually supply a resin that could be used in food contact. So basically, we can create technical data sheets that are same as the US PCR that we provide domestically, and we're creating jobs as opposed to just creating volunteers. So I told you just a couple of weeks ago we were in Haiti. We were doing that trip to Haiti so that we could show Edward and his people how to sort out the food grade containers and how to identify them. It rained while we were there. It didn't rain like I have here in North Carolina. It wasn't a tropical storm or a hurricane. It was just a small shower. They don't just have a problem with not having government provide waste pickup, but they also don't have a government that provided rain and storage, rainstorm runoff solutions for their streets. Like we have, here in America, we have drainage pipes and things like that. Which I should just say water management. So right away, when the rain just started, the driver of the truck said, we've got to get to high ground right away because we have flooding. So right away, drove us to high ground, and right after the rain, it was appalling. You can now understand why there is plastic in the ocean and why it travels there so quickly. So right here, I'm going to show you a video. And we were told afterwards that a couple people died, and that's why you had to get to high ground, and a pig. So here's the video, and it still causes me great discomfort. So it's basically a river of trash happens right after each rain. So very disturbing and quite enlightening, and why we have to go in and provide a solution to these third world countries that have coastal communities and don't have waste pickup. So this slide shows you where we already have partners that are collecting, and that was Dominican Republic and Haiti and the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. So whereas parts of Mexico does have waste pickup provided by the government, some of the coastal communities of Mexico only provides it in the private sector, such as the resorts and things like that. So we've gone into the Yucatan Peninsula and started doing collection programs. So we look at the future of ocean-bound plastic as being where it gets collected in these coastal communities. It comes to Envision. It goes to our customers, and it gets made into products, and hopefully people learn what those products are, and then they put them back into the bin, and then it goes to our MRFs, and then comes back to Envision, and we create this circular economy that way. And because of our versatility in color sorting and being able to sort the different colors of plastics, and because we're able to deodorize the resin, we hopefully can continue make this circular economy happen. These are some of our current customers. Sadly, I mentioned that we've done 5.2 million pounds so far. We've actually only sold about 300,000 pounds so far of the ocean-bound plastics. The biggest hurdle we've had today is the consumer product companies that we've sold to have said, how do we tell the consumers about it? They are all asking for ocean plastic. They don't know what ocean-bound means. So I'm hoping that the majority of you that have signed up for this webinar now understand what ocean-bound means, and that you guys support the meaning of ocean-bound more than ocean plastic. Really and truly, 10 years of ocean plastic really just didn't make a dent. We did less than 2 truckloads after 10 years. It was inconsistent, and we relied on volunteers. We're creating jobs by doing ocean-bound, and you saw what happens in Haiti when it rains. We're hoping we can create something that's much more sustainable by doing ocean-bound. We just need support now by creating customers. And customers are only going to come to us when we have consumers that say they want ocean-bound. So we're hoping that some of you guys start asking for ocean-bound over and above ocean plastics. So you can see our biggest supporter to date has been with Juniper by taking their packaging. They're in the software and internet industry, and they're now moving their packaging with ocean-bound, and they're committed to that. And then Vita, who's made shampoo and cream rinse bottles 100% out of ocean-bound, and reuse it cases, phone cases that you can order online, and our Murphy knives, oyster suckers that I have to say are some of the best. So we truly want to support those customers that have supported us to date with ocean-bound. So this is just kind of a summary of how consumer engagement can be the real mover of ocean-bound plastic. And we truly have lots of availability of ocean-bound plastics today because the quality we can make is the same as the domestic quality. We have just watered it into our current domestic supply of post-consumer, but it's been of great expense to us, so we still want people to support ocean-bound. And it can be part of that whole circular economy today. And we hope, again, by talking about the how to recycle label, that you'll start making good packaging choices in how you buy products. So again, thank you for coming on to this webinar and learning about ocean-bound plastics. And sorry about all my fumbles. I've got a cold and I'm not doing my best speaking, but I do appreciate the fact that you did come on to this webinar and learn about ocean-bound plastics.
All right, thank
Any
you, Tamsin.
questions?
Yeah, thank you, Tamsin, for that great presentation. So if for the audience, if you do have a question or comment, you can use the dialog box on your control panel. And we don't have any yet, so we do have a comment on this attendee mentioned another study that said 64% of the plastics in the ocean were from fishing gear, and they were just curious how that relates to the 80% number. And I guess my comment would be there's so many studies out there, and the ocean is so vast. I mean, you could do studies all over the world and come up with different numbers, I would think. So, Tamsin, if you have a comment on that, go ahead.
Well, you know, just knowing the materials that came into us, I mean, it wasn't much volume. We got materials in both from Method and from Parlay. We told for them. A lot of people would call us wanting to buy that material, and we would say it's not for sale from us, because they would go out and work with the volunteers and get it collected. And I have to say, they would film the material being collected, and then they would film it arriving at our place, and then we would reprocess it. They would film that just to make sure that there was no greenwashing. But when it came in, you know, we would get things from toilet seat tops, so that would probably be from the fishing industry. I know my sister-in-law is in the fishing industry, and a lot of times they take buckets out on the boats with them and they put a toilet seat on top, and probably some of the fishermen don't want to bring that back to land with them, right? So maybe they throw that overboard, so that maybe that's why it washes back up on the beach. And sometimes the fishing nets get, you know, cut, right? And then it's not useful to them, and so they don't want to bring that back with them, and they throw that out. I know there's a lot of work amongst the industry to educate them about that. They certainly don't want to destroy their back door where they make their money. So there is a lot of education over that. But when I look at what's coming in, I see just as much fishing supply stuff, yes, as I did see bottles, and there would be barnacles on the bottles. So they had been out there for a long time. And then we'd see microplastic pieces where you didn't even know what they were at one point in time. But you could also take that plastic and you could crumble it in your hand, and it would turn into a powder. So we really had to blend it off with post-consumer curbside collected material before Method or Parlay could use it into another product. So again, I talk about whether that would be sustainable, you know. But as far as really what's the true source, I question it. You know, you look at that Haiti video and you look at that volume. I have other pictures I can show from that trip just a couple weeks ago. You can walk on the water because of how much plastic is built up on the water on the coast of Port-au-Prince. And that's just disgusting to me.
Okay. Tamsin, do you have a list of your partners that use the ocean-bound plastics?
I mean, I showed a picture of those. Not everybody's ready to be public yet, because I suppose they're a little nervous about whether we're going to continue supplying it. And I'm a little nervous about it too, because it's more expensive for us to do that versus curbside. And, you know, it's not my own company anymore. So whether we're going to keep putting the money into it is always a concern to me, especially when you go to Haiti and you see that. I want to keep putting money into it, right? You know, Mexico isn't as bad as Haiti, nor is the Dominican Republic quite as bad as Haiti is. So I think the more impoverished the country is, the more great the problem is. I can only imagine in Indonesia, where they have, I think, over 400 island communities, some of them very small. I can only imagine the infrastructure on water, just like we see in Haiti, and then all the packaging that might be showing up there today versus 10 years ago. I mean, let's face it, it's a growing global situation where packaging is getting out to every outreach part of the world. But the solution of how we deal with the packaging isn't following it. And that's a big hurdle we have to overcome. And I am really putting a lot of pressure on the consumer product companies to be part of the solution with that, right? I mean, you are providing a way to make food last a longer time, but also be a solution for that when that package is over. And so we need to be part of that as well.
Okay, could you please review the third-party certification process and another
Sure.
attendee asks who's doing that for you? And I guess a related question is, how do you make sure that there are no children working for these companies?
Yeah. So right now we have a fingerprint system, and so they're all registered adults. What we can't validate is whether those adults are using their children to do the pickups. We know that that can happen, and we have found that that has happened. And, you know, it's just part of the infrastructure in these third world countries that, especially in Haiti, where they don't even provide schooling to the children. The government doesn't provide it. And so, you know, I can't say that Hewlett Packard is a partner, but they are just like Envision, where they're in Haiti, like I said, getting the plastic, in particular, the harder to recycle colored PET, and they're providing revenue through an organization called the First Mile Coalition. And that First Mile Coalition is basically a kind of a union for the people down there. And that union provides health care, and it's also providing scholarships for the children of these workers to go to school. And so the money that goes into purchasing the plastic waste that's being collected, a certain percentage of that money is going into Kitty to provide schooling. And so that's how we're cooperatively trying to get those kids off the street. And so even though none of the children are employed, and Edwards facility doesn't employ any of the children, we know some of the collectors that have been distributed super sacks to, we know they might be using some of their children.
Okay.
So on the third party auditor, some of you guys might know Tim Bawalda, and I'm trying to think of the other one, but they work for ERS, which is a well-known consulting firm. That's our third party auditor.
Okay, are there resources available to help organizations educate the public about ocean-bound plastics?
Yeah, I mean, we have a website called oceanboundplastic.com, but no, I mean, we're just it, and you guys thankfully asked us to come speak about it. The National Plastics Recycling Conference asked us to speak about it. We are starting to hear more and more people talk about turning off the tap, looking for alternatives like that. We're thankful the first customer we ever had, Dell Computer, stopped calling it ocean plastic and now is calling it ocean bound. So getting people to use that terminology, and we purposely didn't trademark or copyright that so that we could encourage competitors to do the same thing. So we have told for people that copyrighted terms that we feel are, I don't want to say, not one organization can solve the world of this problem, so we should all work cooperatively on it. And I've actually been attacked by companies that we have told for using terminology that we've used for years and years and years. So ocean-bound is not trademarked or copyrighted. So please, other people use it and go out there and hopefully do and emulate some of the things we're doing. When you saw that graph where we have stars, where we've identified potential other partners, that's not going to be Envision actually going out there and doing the collection systems. Those are partners looking to utilize some of our technologies and then hopefully doing some of the same activities that we're doing here in the Caribbean area in Mexico over there in Southeast Asia. So they might employ our technology and then do some of the same activities that we're doing here over there, and hopefully using the same term, ocean bound.
I'd like to add, in addition to the Science magazine article you referenced, National Geographic just did a article on ocean-bound plastics this summer. So I think the awareness is getting out there. There's more and more people, in the media that are addressing this issue. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more in the press about the issue. So
yeah,
okay.
And I follow Dana Jambeck on Twitter now, and she probably tweets at least 2 or 3 times a day, and she does a great job of following, oh my gosh, hundreds of different organizations that are doing things surrounding this issue. So she's made this her life's mission. I would love to make it my life's mission. I've got to focus on recycling high density polyethylene. I made that my life's mission 30 years ago when I first thought I hated plastics in general, and realized I can't give up my life of plastics completely, and found that plastics actually have a lot of benefits in general. So if I despise them so much, why? It's because they're not recycled. So I've made that my mission, is to get them recycled. So I hate to say, a few weeks ago when we saw all these issues around Haiti, it makes me feel like I've taken 1 step forward and 20 steps backwards when you see a country like that, and you wonder. But I can't give up. Now it's more about how can we get more extended producer responsibility. And I'm not a big fan of laws making it happen. I wish more companies would step up to the plate. So, at first I thought about citing particular companies, but I'd like to give thanks to the companies that have stepped forward, like Dannon and Unilever and, the Henkels and the Nestle's and the Colgates and the P&Gs that have made outward statements of what they're going to do. And, I question the big Amazon that I own a little stock in and wonder, they keep thriving on the stock market, and really they're huge packaging consumers. What are they doing? We need to start putting pressure on some of these other companies and retailers that aren't doing anything.
Okay, this attendee is a representative of a company in North Carolina, actually, that they're interested in making reusable plastic and recycled content food containers. They want to know what the limitations are, if any, for the resins in terms of being food grade. How does the material hold up in high heat, dishwashers, microwaves, etc.?
Yeah, so we hold 2 LNOs, actually 3, but 2 for high density and 1 for polypropylene. So when it comes to ocean bound right now, it's only for the high density that we're working on the LNO, and that would be for conditions of use C through H. So for high heat, no, but for direct food packaging for conditions of use C through H at 100%, no problem. And we're the only ones in the world that have that broad of a scale for post-consumer. For polypropylene, we have it for conditions of use A through H. So sterilized at 100%, hot filled, you can do it. So our technology, I encourage you to contact me, you've got my name at envisionplastics.com. And I would encourage you to come visit our plant, and I can show you our devolatilization technology so that you can feel comfortable with it. I actually did not feel comfortable selling recycled resin in direct food packaging back in the early 2000s when we first purchased that technology from Union Carbide years and years and years ago. So I now am a 100% believer in it, so I would be happy to show it to you.
And just to clarify, LNO means letter of no objection from the FDA?
Correct,
Okay.
from the FDA. So the FDA does not give approval to anybody. They just do not object to you using it. So anybody who manufactures packaging, that's their job to go to a recycler and see it for themselves and understand the process themselves.
And related question, how does the cost of this plastic compare with virgin material?
So these days, I think for most recycled resins, they have been at times more expensive than virgin resins. And that's the problem. I think you've got still close to 70% of the recyclables going into the landfill. So if we could get collections to increase, we could be better at the supply, and then it would, I guess, support the demand. So yes, there tends to be an imbalance with the demand versus the supply. So with all these consumer product companies that I mentioned, a few of the names, the demand's gone up a little bit more than the supply as of late. So the pricing hasn't been good in relationship to that. Don't say that you should stop demanding it. I think that demand pull increases the supply. You've heard about the recent troubles with the Chinese stores and that there's been a lack of demand. I think the issue we have in the United States today is that we've slowed down the capacity in the States to meet the quality of some of the other commodities to be able to still ship to China. The highest commodity collected at curbside is paper, and we've moved so many of the mills to China that in order to meet that quality, we've slowed down the capacities. And by slowing that down, we're just not processing enough of the materials to meet the demand of some of the other materials, and so that caused the cost to go up. So we're kind of stuck in the middle. We're squeezed as being a mill here in the States of not being able to get enough supply to meet the demand, and we're having to pay more for it. And so it's a double-edged sword right now. We need more supply. I don't know that we have enough capacity here in the States to meet that.
Okay, what percentage of the collected plastic is not recyclable?
That's a good question. I closed out my Outlook and I actually just got some stats given to me. So, you know, everything on Earth is recyclable. It's a matter of whether it's economical to recycle it and whether somebody has built the processing and whether somebody's willing to buy it. Today, I think about 9% of the plastics that are produced are being recycled overall. About 30% of the bottles are being recycled. So you think about, there's a lot of durable goods and rigid plastics and things like that. So the question is if we would standardize some of the packaging, more of it would be recycled, right? So I mentioned there's more demand than there is being recycled. So there's an opportunity there. You know, it's a convoluted question, right? I really don't know. I did get an email just today about what the MRF is receiving versus what they're actually selling and recycling. And I didn't actually memorize those stats for you. And I closed out my Outlook so you guys wouldn't be bothered with dings from my email. And there's probably quite a few of those. So I can't answer that off the top of my head. I can tell you that we probably have anywhere from 15 to 20% yield loss of the plastics that we receive into our plant with things that we're purchasing from the suppliers to us that we're not really wanting. So, you know, we get salt and peppered into things like, you know, injection molded resins, PET, where we want HDPE, strapping, some cardboard, some cans, things like that. We try to recover some of those materials and resell them to other recyclers of those types of materials. But overall, it bounces between 15 and 20%. If that helps, I would presume the MRFs have probably similar yield losses of 15 to 20%.
Okay. Last question here. Have you spoken to the big beverage companies like Coca-Cola or Pepsi to get involved in this this issue?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I will share with you, I mean, it takes them 2 to 3 years to make a change in packaging. Rightfully so, they have big brands to protect, and so before they make a packaging change, they really have to get behind it and do their research before they make that change. So any change you see on the shelf, you know, they started that process quite a while ago. So I applaud, you know, Coke came out several months ago with some very ambitious goals to be 100% recyclable on all their packaging and recycled content at pretty significant rates across their portfolio. So you have to applaud them. Very ambitious goals. So you know they're working hard behind the scenes to meet those goals because they have a short period of time to get there. And then on the ocean and ocean plastics and ocean bound, I know they're working behind the scenes in some of these third world communities to work on that. They work on diversity goals. They work on gender situations. So, you know, I think the bigger of a corporation you are, the more you have to protect things like that, the more you're scrutinized. So you have to applaud some of those activities. But like I said, some of these major CPGs have already been working with us on ocean bound. Their biggest issue is, you know, does the consumer know what ocean bound is and how are they going to tell that story? So I guess they're really relying on us to get the word out there before they can get the word out there. I've always said I really need a famous movie star or somebody like that to talk about it and tweet about it or advertise it so that the consumer asks for it. When they ask for it, I know they'll push quicker to get it to happen. Until then, you're going to have smaller companies like you saw posted on my current customers doing it because they're just looking for a differentiator.
Okay, so we're going to wrap it up right now. Thanks again, Tamsin, for that great presentation, and thank you for the attendees for providing some good questions. So again, this webinar, like all the webinars in this series, has been recorded and will be made available via YouTube links on both the National Recycling Coalition and Recycling Market Center websites. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope you'll join us for next month's webinar. Please visit the NRC and RMC websites for schedule updates. Have a great day, everybody.